Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Business Innovators Radio. I'm your host, Ralph Brogdon, and I am delighted to have a very special guest in the studio today. Her name is Tami Patzer. She helps local business owners and professionals get found online using Blue Ocean Authority. Tami is a social media educator, and she teaches marketing courses at Florida Gulf Coast University. Tami is the publisher of Guides Publishing and currently is working on How to Retire in Southwest Florida and Your Destination Wedding in Southwest Florida. Tami, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks, Ralph. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got started doing this, helping professionals get found online. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's about as simple as I could find it, because what happened is I come from a newspaper background. I was a newspaper editor for many years for local newspapers. So I, of course, got very immersed into the local community where I live. And I also created a real estate television show. This kind of dates me because I had one of the very first real estate TV shows in Florida and the United States in the late 80s. So my background has always been printing, publishing, television. I mean, it's third-person credibility. You know, that was the old school term for what now is called authority marketing. So how I came up with the concept of Blue Ocean Authority, of course, is based on the book Blue Ocean Strategy, which is basically the overall concept that you have to become the person that stands out above everyone else out in this crowded ocean or sea of competition. So that's how I visualize what I do. So I basically took all of my years of newspapering, television, videotape production. And when I say videotape production, I mean...
You mean that literally, don't
video.
you?
Back in the day, and shooting 1-inch video, that was the high quality. And of course, boy, was I happy when everything went digital and my costs went way, way down. So what I've done is I basically took my background and knowledge, and I actually got my master's degree in mass communication so that I could teach, and that's how I actually became an educator teaching courses at different universities. And now I actually created a social media certification program at Florida Gulf Coast University. And one of the things that has always been very near and dear to my heart is the publishing aspect. And of course, I live in Southwest Florida. And one thing about this area that makes it so different than the rest of Florida is it has a much slower pace of life. It's got beautiful subtropical weather. You can have the great retirement lifestyle. And that's how I came up with the concepts of how to retire in Southwest Florida for one of my book projects. And then obviously Florida as a destination for weddings, that just made perfect sense for the second book project that I'm working on.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot going on with all of your experience, your knowledge, the people that you help, and then you're teaching courses and everything. You've just got a lot on your plate.
Well, the beauty of my courses and the beauty of the online world is I created the courses so that they are online courses, and I do connect with my students, but I do not have to show up in the classroom because my classroom is an online portal, and I create the classes just like you would for any class, except I make them into video modules. I make a workbook and a course book, and then I videotape the lessons. And when people need me, they just send me an email, or they actually can call me on the phone, and then I actually will set up either a video Skype or a go-to meeting with them. And it's as if I'm with them, doing an over-the-shoulder lesson if they really need that personal help. And I find that some people do, some people don't. So it's easy for me to create very in-depth courses without me having to, literally drive to Fort Myers or to Tampa, which I actually used to do. Mm-hmm. And of course, if for example, if you drive from where I'm at, driving to Tampa is 180 miles round trip. So that would be equivalent to my entire day. If I was actually going to teach a 1-hour class or a 1.5-hour class, it would take a whole day. Now I create the content for my classes, upload it, and then I can spend micro minutes helping people with only what they really need. So that's actually, I really enjoy that part of my life and educating people about getting found online, social media, the credibility and authority. I'm finding that when I first started, which was back in 2009, a lot of the terminology used today didn't exist, like reputation marketing or reputation management. I actually used to try to look that term up in the search engines, and there was nothing in 2009. And now, of course, you can go find all kinds of references to that. And just like the terms authority marketing, the same thing, they were terms that really didn't exist in that phrase, in that phraseology. It used to just be called public relations.
Right.
Or publicity. So it's really changed a lot.
Yeah, you and I have a very similar background with publishing and with traditional media. We've both seen a lot of changes happen, particularly with the pervasiveness of online marketing and digital media. It's really changed the landscape. And so you are right on the cutting edge and training the next generation of entrepreneurs and business owners so that they can really take advantage of all of the opportunity available to them today in digital media and with authority marketing that they didn't have when you and I were trying to get our businesses going.
You're absolutely right. It's funny because I have some clients who have been my clients since 2009, and I was telling them you have to own digital assets. You have to have your digital waterfront property. And that was actually how I got them to understand what a digital asset was and how valuable it was by, some of my clients live on sailboat water here locally. So I said, they told me a story about how when they bought that property, it was $50,000, back in the 70s, but now it's a couple million. And I said, well, that's the perfect analogy for every piece of digital asset, why you want to have videos, why you want to have press releases, why you want to have magazine articles, and why you want to be part of a book. You want to have this waterfront property because it will become an asset that will actually make your company more valuable, just like waterfront property. It's a limited thing. I mean, if you look at Google, for example, that's a really good example right now because it used to be, there was a 7-pack. And so you had 7 opportunities to be one of that 7. And now it's only 3. So that means that 4 people no longer are showing on the front page of Google. and only the people who knew what they were doing or had somebody helping them are probably still in that number 1, 2, or 3 position. And I think that's a really good visualization of something as simple as claiming that Google, your Google map and your Google local listing.
Right. Yeah.
That's a really good example of that.
Yeah. So you're working with students. You're also working with local business owners and professionals to help them get
Yes.
found online and try to get them up to speed with all of the changes and the opportunities that we have in digital media now. So I wanted to ask, what do you see as the most common problem that presents itself when you're trying to help a local business owner? What's the biggest obstacle that you have to help them overcome?
Well, the number one obstacle I see is, of course, education. They have to be educated to understand why this is so important, because sometimes they just don't get it. But really, what I really see as one of the biggest obstacles for the local business person or professional is lack of consistency in what they're doing. For example, they say, oh, I'm going to go make my LinkedIn, but then they don't continue to feed it with the articles or anything like that. Or maybe it's Facebook, and they'll have the Facebook page either created for them or they make it, and then they stop participating or communicating on it. So it just sits there. So it's the lack of a what I would call an editorial plan or a marketing plan to be consistent with your marketing message. And then, of course, often people get sucked into the socialization of social media. Not there's anything wrong with that, other than that they need to realize that if you're using it for business, you cannot be, you can't be that political. You have to kind of watch what you say if you're using it for business, unless you're deliberately trying to eliminate a large portion of people based on politics.
Yeah, and politics would be the subject that would tend to divide people and identify your audience and put up a barrier with the people that you didn't want to do business with.
Yes, especially in our hot political climate that we live in today. I just, every now and then it's just like so tempting. It's like, no, Tami, no.
I struggle with the same thing. I think you really hit on a good key point there when you talk about lack of consistency, because I deal with business owners also, and it's exactly what you're saying, that maybe they have a list of things in their mind that they think they need to do, like, I need to get my website to a certain place. I need to get on Facebook. I need to get on LinkedIn. And then so they do, and they check that off, and then they move on to something else. But what you're saying is, once you put those assets in place, you've got to continue to invest time and content and really use those assets to give value to the audience. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. That is exactly it. And what people don't realize is, yes, it does take time, and you do have to either put time in your personal schedule to do it or assign it to someone in your office. Today, one of the biggest job skills that I think is needed are the skills of social media. Are you able to go onto social media, and would you be able to communicate on behalf of your company and do it in a way that you are, not crossing any boundaries? And that is part of the reason many people take the courses I teach. Either they're high-level executives. I've had many CEOs take my courses just for the information they can get so that they understand the language of social media And then often I will have people who are in job transitions or hoping to improve their chances of getting a better job. I've had them take my courses. And then I always tell every young person I've ever counseled or mentored, I always tell them to learn about social media, even if that isn't the direction they're going in. I've often had journalism students or mass communication students, and they'll say, Professor Patzer, what should I do? And I'll say, definitely learn how to use social media for business or for medical. And those students who took my advice, they graduate, and guess what? They end up with these really, really good jobs with only a bachelor's degree, which is, for me, it's like, yay, they listen to me. And then, of course, they stay in contact with me, and I watch them as they get their first jobs, and then they will come back and they'll say, well, I'm going to go for the master's degree now. And they ask for advice. And then, of course, eventually, I even have a couple who are on their way to becoming entrepreneurs. They're recognizing, hey, I don't want to work for someone else. I think I'd like to create my own, publication or my own company, or my own social media management company. I've had some students do that too.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
That's exciting. And I'll be honest with you, I was very, very slow to catch on to the whole social media thing myself. And I think a lot of business people listening to this, or maybe not a lot, but maybe there are some listening that would say, I don't get the whole social media thing. I don't know how to measure it. I don't know how to manage it. What would you say to somebody like that who is really questioning, is it worth me getting in Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter? What would you say to them to try and convince them that this is where marketing is heading?
Well, number one, again, it always seems to go back to that education. And then, of course, the conversation that we have to have as a consultant is also, what is your purpose? Who is your ideal client? Where do they hang out? Obviously, if your ideal client is nowhere to be found on Facebook or on LinkedIn or Twitter, maybe you need to look at a different venue. But I always try to start the conversation with, who is your ideal target audience? Where do they hang out? And then we can determine the best platform. And again, there's so many platforms out there. You may not need to be on Facebook or on LinkedIn or Twitter, but maybe you need to be only on Facebook or only on LinkedIn or any combination. I'm a really big believer in the power of video. That's actually where I started on my big social media adventure. It was with video. Mm-hmm. And the reason I like video so much is because if you, for example, do question and answer videos, one question, one answer, or one problem, one solution videos, and you make a video, so there you have your one digital asset. You can upload it to video, and then you could also get that syndicated over many other video channels. You could transcribe that video. Then it could become a Facebook post, a LinkedIn post, a blog post, or part of your newsletter. You could take the audio portion from your video and have an audio only. So there's another digital asset. And that, of course, could be put on, SoundCloud or any audio thing, or it could become a podcast, part of a podcast. And you can see where I'm going with this, repurposing.
Right.
Starting with the video as your foundation, your content foundation. And the funny part about that is even in between now and 2009, when I first started, video, it used to be a lot harder to do because, our phones were not as smart. Our quality on our phones was not as good. But now, if you have an iPhone or a smartphone, the latest phones, you can actually probably shoot fairly decent, video and audio on your phone, especially if you have good light and a nice little plug-in microphone.
Right.
And you could probably use that because the expectation is not as high for video. Of course, I'm not saying that that's the only type of video that you should shoot, because there is a place for the higher produced video also. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to let that intimidate you or stop you from using video if you have the simple tools of a phone and, of course, a little bit of inexpensive tools like a little inexpensive tripod to steady the phone, a little plug-in microphone to help you make your audio better, and, of course, outdoor lighting, or just have a lot of light so that you don't have what I call skeleton face when you're too dark.
Yeah.
But again, I personally believe in video as your foundation of your content, and then repurposing that. And of course, that would help with that consistency issue.
Mm. Well, I think I already know the answer to the question I'm about to ask you, but I wanted to ask, how would a business owner who needs help in this area, how would working with you greatly improve their chances for success as opposed to just trying to figure it out on their own?
Well, if time is money,
mm-hmm.
and you value your time and you realize that there's a learning curve involved in all of this. And I have a prime example of a learning curve, mm-hmm. Simple audio editing. I spent maybe 5 hours trying to edit a simple piece of audio. All I wanted was to cut it off in the front, cut it off in the back, two simple edits. I wasted like 5 hours trying to do Audacity. And some other, I think I tried a couple others until I found a simple, something like mp3cut.net online, and I was able to upload it, chop, 5 minutes later I had what I needed, which was a real simple edit. So I think when you work with a professional, not only do you get good advice from people who have either went to school and sat through hours and hours of education on a topic, or sometimes hours and hours of online webinars, mm-hmm. or training, but you can save sometimes years off the learning curve and go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in terms of where you are on your path of authority or your path of credibility, and in getting these multiple digital assets. Somebody like me who learned it the old-fashioned way, which was through experimental means and stumbled onto methods. Now I know it's like you don't have to do it that way, because I can say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and mm-hmm. we're going to get ranked, and you're going to be heard, you're going to be seen, or you're going to have multiple digital assets. Just because I already, I guess, paid the dues for
right.
you.
Right.
By stumbling, and seriously, I spent 7 days a week when I first started doing videos, where I would shoot videos, edit videos, and then I would optimize videos and distribute videos. And I spent several years where that's all I did every single day. And now, of course, I don't do that because I learned.
Mm-hmm.
I now am smart enough to say, I'm not really wanting to do that, but I'm going to give it to that person to do. And that's exactly what business owners should be doing. They should be looking at themselves and saying, what am I good at in my business? What is it I should be doing to operate my business at its full potential? And what should I be delegating? And sometimes you have to spend some time with someone like me, with a consultant, telling them about you, and then you have a mutual agreement on what it is that your goals are, and then we can put into place all of the ways to get you found online, how to measure it, and how to know if it's working or not working. And then, of course, come back to, okay, we're going to keep on this path because we're seeing that, hey, you got, one new client a day this week. So you've added this much, potential to your bottom line. Mm-hmm. And we're able to measure that. Or, for some reason this isn't working. Let's tweak this. There's so many different things that, a professional marketing consultant can do for you that, just takes time. So to answer the question, my long route to answering the question is save time, which in turn will save you money. And people like you and I also we stay up on the latest cutting edge things. So when you work with people like us, you're always getting like, what's the latest of how to do this stuff.
Right. And I'll give you a good example of that is when I go to a website and it still has a slider on the home page and it's rotating 4 or 5 images. Uh-huh. And then I have to tell them, this is a beautiful design, but sliders went out about 5 years ago. The reason they went out is because no one clicks on them.
Right.
You get 90% of your clicks is on the first image. Everything after that is ignored. So it's not best practice anymore. And I'm good for breaking best practices and innovating and trying different things. But you make a good point that when people dedicate their entire life and their profession to knowing the ins and outs of this, that's something that a business owner who doesn't want to take the time to know all of that stuff, they can leverage our expertise and put it to work for them. And especially with you, Tami, because you've got, and this was the answer to how I thought I would answer the question is how would working with you greatly improve their chances of success? It's because you've got so much knowledge. You've got so many ideas, and a lot of business owners, they're so close to their business. They've got maybe 5 ideas for how to market themselves. And you've just got a wealth of information that when you enter into the picture, you bring so much knowledge and expertise to that business. They'd really be crazy not to leverage that.
Well, what I know is sometimes when I open my mouth, it is like I can easily overwhelm people with ideas because I do. It is like turning on that fire hose, or I'll meet someone and I'll just go, oh my God, all of these ideas just start flooding into ways to help them to become bigger and better. And you said something earlier about convincing people. And if I feel, after I give them the proper amount of education, if I feel that they need convincing, to be honest with you, I will walk away.
Yeah.
Because if I have to convince somebody of the way marketing is done today, they're not ready.
Exactly.
And so it's a disservice to them and to me for me to try to convince them. And I just think it's really important that obviously people listening to this show, they're listening because they're interested in knowing more about what is the cutting edge of business and what are the business innovations going on today.
Well, you've got so many things going on. You're teaching students, you're helping local business owners, you have publishing projects going on. And I want to get personal right now and just ask if you wouldn't mind sharing with our listeners, what is your daily routine to keep you motivated, to keep you on top of things and stay productive and stay happy and have all that positive energy that's coming across right now? What do you do every day to keep that going?
Well, okay. It's funny because the first thought that came to my mind was, I have a dog. I have a dog who gives me unconditional love. I actually do. I have a rescue dog, a Doberman named Molly. And the reason I even bring her up is because she's very grounding for me. The dog really loves me unconditionally and is always there for me, and that's very grounding for me. But I am also a Silva method instructor, and Silva is SILVA method, and that's Jose Silva, and that is a form of dynamic meditation that helps you use more of your mind. And I actually teach that, but I actually use it. And so what does that mean? It means that I try to be very positive, and I see myself as a magnet for all things good. So every morning, before I get up and start running around, I actually will visualize my day. Like pre-plan my day, that it's going to be positive and that the people I talk to will understand what I'm trying to convey to them. And I try to do good, with all of my messages and everything. And so I visualize having a good day. So that's a dynamic form of creative visualization. And I realize that my thoughts have power, so I'm always aware of what I'm thinking about, and when I get a little bit of a negative thought, maybe somebody doesn't respond the way I hope, I try to bring myself back and just say, that's okay, they're not ready, or, whatever it is, I just try to keep this positive spin, I guess, on everything. And I have my big why, I guess, is I've been a single mom for a long, long time. So I have my children who happen to be grown now, and I have grandchildren. And I always am thinking about how I'm the person that they look up to, and I have to be this good role model for them. And I also really, really believe in my entrepreneurial state. I've been self-employed since 2009 after 34 years of literally driving up and down the freeway to work, and 34 years, that's a big motivation for me to not go back to a job.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that, and I really do love talking with people, encouraging people, and helping people, and everything I do is some form of that. When you're doing, helping people get found online, and you're saying, okay, we're going to help you with videos, or maybe we're going to work on your reputation. Let's do this plan. Or when we create a marketing plan for consistency, for example, and you see somebody, who gets it, they say, oh, okay, I don't have to try to be everything. I can just focus on this little part, or I can give it to someone else to do. I can delegate this little thing, it's really rewarding. And with the students, when, especially ones that are kind of struggling, like they'll say, I just can't get this Facebook thing. And you say, well, follow the directions. And then they go, oh, is that all it is? Little rewards, I think, really keep me going. And, but like I said, I do have my family, my pets, and my children are big motivators for me. And I feel a big responsibility of being there, for them.
Sure.
And again, I really do look forward every single day of helping people to move forward with their businesses, because everything I do helps people grow their business.
Yes. And we were talking offline about a couple of things that you're working on right now. Why don't you share with our listeners what you're doing right now that's got you really excited?
Okay. Well, I'm working on some charity book publishing projects, and one in particular is near and dear to my heart. The book is actually about how to retire in Southwest Florida. And again, I live in this beautiful, beautiful area of Southwest Florida, and my charitable group is called Help in Charlotte County. And it's a little bit of a different type of group because they're the behind the scenes group that helps all of these other organizations who are trying to help feed people. So this particular group, they do a lot of behind the scenes fundraising so that, say, the food banks, when they run out of food, this is the group that will go try to find the food to refill the food bank to help people. So I'm working on that project, and it involves local business people. And my unique spin on this How to Retire in Southwest Florida is all about the people who are part of the book. They, of course, talk about their business, and they talk about themselves a little bit. And then they talk about what it's like to live and work and play in this area.
Well, you've sold me already. I mean, just I lived a good number of years in upstate New York, and I just moved back to North Carolina, where it's a little more temperate, and this is where I was born and raised. But you're doing a really good job selling me on why I should come to Southwest Florida.
Well, it is really, really pleasant here. And then the other book project, and I think I've narrowed down the my charity on that is it's for brides who need extra help, and I haven't got it all the way worked out, but it's about destination weddings. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm got experts who are sharing, their expertise. Maybe it's a resort, a florist, a DJ, a limo company. And again, they're talking about what brides and grooms should be, the frequently asked questions that they should be asking.
Right.
That maybe they don't know they should be asking when they're trying to plan a destination wedding. And again, I'm focusing on this beautiful Southwest Florida area because it is very unique and different than many of the areas. For example, one of our locations is where former President Bush and his family, they used to vacation in Boca Grande, and they still come here to near where I live. So it's just a very pleasant area. So I'm really excited about that because I'm helping a charity with a need. I'm getting a massive exposure through my book projects, and I think that's what's really, really important is that these different charitable organizations understand how they can help gain and get international exposure through Amazon. And then, of course, a physical book is just a fabulous, fabulous tool for your own authority. And being a contributor to a book like this really gives a lot of what I like to call third-person credibility. That comes from, of course, my old newspaper days. When we used to run business stories, people would always come back and say, wow, I get more from my business story than I do with any of my other advertising. Yeah. And that's because you have third-person credibility. And in this case, not only do you have the third-person credibility of the charity or Amazon, Amazon is a pretty big company.
Yeah, I would say.
And when you're published, it's just very useful. I wrote my first book in 2011. It was called Ask Tami, 365 Social Media Tips, Tricks, and Tools. And
that sounds like a great resource.
Actually, it's still pretty, there's some of the things are a little dated, but I would say 95% of it is still viable. And I wrote that, and the beauty of that was whenever I go out and speak or do live events, I have my book. And of course, I can give it away. I can have it for a raffle. I can sell it. I can do whatever I want. But people, when you're introduced, here's Tami Patzer, the author of this book.
Sure.
So it can be very powerful, and people, it gives you a certain amount of credibility when you are the author of a book, and that's something I think is very powerful about my book project.
Absolutely. Well, I know that as people are listening, they're going to want to find out more about you and find out how they can get in touch with you. What's the best way for listeners to reach out to you?
The easiest way to contact me is to go to Facebook, and they can find me under my full name, which is Tamara Patzer, Tamara, Patzer, Patzer, and they could friend me. Or they can go to blueoceanauthority.com and connect with me there, or they can find me on LinkedIn. Those are, I'd say, 3 of the best ways to find me.
Super. So any final thoughts or words of wisdom? You've already shared so much. I feel like that I need to go out and start putting some of this into practice now. But are there any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share as we close?
I would say use the power of your own mind to create your life. I think if you can visualize what you want and just put all of your belief, desires, and expectancy into that, you can create the life you want, and that can be your personal life or your business life. And I think that's the best way, the best ending thoughts I can give you is that you can create the life you want using the power of your own mind.
Tami Patzer of blueoceanauthority.com. Thank you so much, Tami, for being on Business Innovators Radio today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed sharing my information with you, Ralph.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.